What's up everyone, Chad here from Star Wars Buckets. It's been a while since I shot a video. I am going to show some of the steps I used to finish this Phase 1 animated clone bucket. This was made, it says WCA version 5 2011, so I'm assuming that means Watch City Armory. This is a really nice clone helmet. I love the Phase 1 animated original helmets. Here is the Mohawk, which is a separate piece that goes on in the groove here. But this is just a raw cast my buddy pulled off a really old mold that he has. You can see it, it's an older mold, so it's got to have a lot of imperfections and need a lot of cleanup. You can see, it needs a lot of sanding, a lot of filling, but it depends on how battle damaged you want it. You can see there's some things that need to be cleaned up here. Obviously on the bottom, all this has to be trimmed out. But anyway, I am by no means any expert on finishing raw helmets, but I'll show you what I did. I've done a few here and there in my time. So my buddy Mike pulled 3 of these for me. So where I actually stand on my current helmet is here. So this is as far as I've gotten. So far, what I normally do is I normally cut out the visor first and the neck ring, but since there were so many things that needed to be sanded, I just started on the sanding phase first. What I use is 220 grit sandpaper. Actually it says 220 on the back. You can use other grit, but I like 220. It's not too rough, but it's not too fine. And I just, give a good hand sanding through the whole entire thing. You can use a palm sander. I don't like to do it because sometimes it gets away from me and then you end up having grooves in the helmet. So I just hand sanded everything. Got it pretty smooth, and then there's a lot of holes in here, so I used bondo. I ended up using a bondo glazing and spot putty, and I should wear gloves, but I don't. I basically just put it on my hands, just like a red putty, and smear it on back and forth here. But I'll find an imperfection and just kind of smear it on. And it dries pretty quickly. Usually give it at least an hour, and it sands off pretty nicely. But I did that on the entire helmet. Now there are some, there's some actual holes. The mold is old, so I end up trying to get my camera to focus here. I don't know if you can see or not, but all the way in the back, I end up putting some JB Weld, which I will show you in a bit, to fill up some of the holes. There's some in the back here, and I also put some here to fill in the holes here. Now this, it's a lighter gray because I already started sanding it. You can see the darker gray here. It's what it dries to, but once you start sanding it to make it smooth, after you sand it, it turns this light gray. So anyway, that's where I am overall. I know it looks like a mess, but it's actually getting pretty smooth. I still have to go in with a Dremel, obviously, and cut this out, clean the bottom up, and then get into some grooves, like in here, and clean these up a little more, just the little areas. But anyway, that's where I am now. So I'm going to go ahead, hook up the Dremel, and start trimming out the visor area. Okay, Dremel cutting time. So if you're not familiar with the Dremel, this is a Dremel. You can get them at Home Depot. I know most of you probably know what this is, but if you're a beginner, it's just basically a rotary cutting tool. So you can use, they have different adapters for it. They have sanding adapters, but this is a great tool if you're gonna make helmets. So you have this. Always have a respirator, because once this resin starts spraying everywhere, you do not want to breathe it in. And then obviously you want your safety glasses. So I'm going to go grab this and start cutting. So I got the visor cut out, and I got all the junk, for the most part, off the bottom of the neck ring. Now when you cut these visors, they don't have to be perfect. You don't want to get to the edge, because a lot of times when you're using the Dremel, if you're not used to it, it'll get away from you. Even if you are used to it, it'll get away from you really quick, and you can go wow right into your helmet. If you do end up doing that, don't worry, everything's fixable. I use JB Weld to fix those too, but No helmet is ever perfect. What I'm gonna end up doing is taking some files or taking the drill bit of the, you take one of the other sanding bits like this and go in all the grooves and sand that pretty well, and then you probably want to sand it by hand as well. Going back to safety glasses, well, I was like, oh, I'll use my brand new safety glasses that I got. These, yeah, that didn't turn out so well, because within the first 3 seconds I started cutting, a piece, chip or something went up and hit me in the eye. Scared the crap out of me. So anyway, you really want goggles, you know, the goggles that actually go over your full face. This is the closest I have to them, but at least these have the side and a little bit more on the bottom. So I ended up putting these on, but yeah, these aren't good. So use something like this, or even better, get the goggles that go all the way around your eyes. Even better, I've been meaning, I don't have one because I keep forgetting to get one, is the full face shield. You know what welders use? They have the whole thing that goes over their face. It doesn't have to be the whole helmet, but, well, maybe it does. But I would get the whole full face shield that comes all the way down to here. Because one time I was using that blade, and that blade moves really, really fast. It exploded on me, and it hit me in the neck, and I thought a piece lodged into my neck. I thought I was cut and gonna have to go to the emergency room, but it was more of a scare than anything else. But I've been meaning to get a full face shield. Of course I haven't yet, which is really stupid, but maybe I'll go do that today. All right, the next step, I am going to use this Dremel to do all the sanding in here. So I'm going to smooth this out best I can, and then after that, I'm just going to take sandpaper and hand sand it, get it as smooth as I can. And then pretty much, you know, same thing on the bottom here. I'm gonna go around and see how smooth I can get it. Not bad overall. I got it pretty smooth all the way around. It's not perfect, but it's not supposed to be either. Now, one thing I did goof a little bit, but luckily it's on the bottom, is you can see where I cut this a little too thin on the end. I don't know how I missed that. Obviously it's not perfect. It's like thicker here, thinner here, but you know what? It's the bottom. No one's gonna see it anyway. I might do it for this one is you can get car door trim and put it around the bottom to give it more of a finished look. It's probably not Canon, but you know, whatever. I can show some of that later, but sometimes if you put some rubber on the bottom, it'll give it a nice finished look and cover up some of the imperfections. But yet again, it's the bottom, so no big deal. I had some extra resin here on the chin area, and you can see there's a kind of a hole there now. When I was sanding with the Dremel sander, I went a little too much, and now there's a hole here. But again, that's where the JB weld comes in. I can just patch that up. Everything is pretty much fixable, except for when you cut too much off. That's really not fixable, but you know, it's solid. It's not like it's thin or anything, so it's still fine. One last thing is in the little areas, like in the corners, like right here, you know, obviously it's hard for even your Dremel bit to get in the little corners here, so you can get a file set from Home Depot. Now this is like $10. It's kind of a cheapie set, but it's 10 bucks. Can't really beat it. And when I say cheapie set, don't sand too hard or they will snap. This actually snaps, but these come with a handle, and you just loosen the handle up and slide this in, tighten it up. There's your file. Now, if you file real hard and this starts bending, it's going to snap. I snap these all the time. It's just, you know, the way they are. But they have different shapes on the end. You know, some are flat to get in some of the corners, some are rounded. Half the time I don't even use the handle, I just end up holding it. So you can get in here. Oops, hope if I held it the right way. And then you can get right in here. Now, some areas obviously a little more flimsy now, so if you end up pushing on something, make sure your hand's on the other side so you don't snap your helmet. That would suck. Go in here and just clean it up. It's already looking better, I don't know if you can see, but my drum just couldn't get in there. And you don't want to force your sanding drum in, because if you go in too far and your bit is too thick, then you start digging on the top and the bottom, and then that's harder to fix. So it's just easier if you're patient and go in here with a file and try not to break your helmet, which I've done on more than one occasion, that I like to admit. So that is about it. This is where I am now. Doesn't look pretty yet, but it will. I'm gonna keep sanding and filling this and sanding it and filling it till I get to the point where I'm happy and it feels pretty good. Okay, onto the JB Weld. Now I mentioned JB Weld a couple times, and this, if you're not familiar, is what it is. It's you can get it at Home Depot, Lowe's, any of those hardware stores, True Value. Comes in a yellow and black tube. It's a 2-pack. There's also a red and black tube. I recommend the yellow and black one, black version, because it dries quicker. I still usually leave it dry for 24 hours. You don't have to. I think it dries in 10 minutes. Let's see. I don't know. It dries pretty quickly, but I usually let it sit overnight. So it's just a mixture. All you do is, well, actually, no, before I do that, let me show you what I'm fixing. So on the bottom here, you can see I kind of was a little crazy on the sander. So it's a little, it's not thin, but it's a little rough. It's the bottom. I was just going to put a little bit there, and then I have a hole here, which I sanded through too hard. So I'm just going to fill that. And then, as you can see in the top, I added some there. There was a little thin spots you could see. If you held it up to the sunlight, you could see it shining through, so it helps fill it in. Plus it makes the helmet a little heavier, which is nice. So all you do is equal amounts, yellow, that much. Make sure you seal it or it'll ooze out. Now you don't want to get this on your hands if you can help it. I mean, I do all the time, but it's hard to wash off. It's kind of a pain, so you use gloves if you can. It's one of those substances, once you get it on yourself, everything you touch, you get it on. Look, it's been 2 seconds, I already have it all over my hands. So I'm gonna use one glove here. Now you need a stir. I don't have one, I'm just using the end of a paintbrush. You just mix it together. Try and zoom in for you here. So it's white and black, so obviously it makes a grayish color. So I think you have 10 minutes, 8 minutes. So there's a lot left on this brush, so I'm just gonna wipe it off here. And I just basically use my finger. So first I'm just gonna run my finger in here and fill the gap. And then you need some on the other side, and try and smooth it out as much as you can, because it's not the easiest stuff to sand down smooth. Once this stuff dries, it's pretty darn solid. So this is kind of what it looks like. So we'll see how that dries. You can always add more layers if you want. So now I'm going to add some here, and I just put my palm in it. Great, wonderful. What I'm going to do is let that dry. I'm going to sand it, and then I'm going to take the whole helmet and wash it under cold water, get all the dust off, because I'm going to put my first coat of filler primer on it. Now this stuff is really good. It's like $5, $5.79 at Home Depot. It fills in any of the little gaps, hence the name filler primer. And once it's sprayed on and dry, you can really see all your imperfections and anything you want to fix, which I'm not too worried about, because this is going to be a weathered helmet anyway. But all right, that's it for JB Weld. I'll shoot part 2 soon. All right, thanks for watching.